Good day. I'm Mike James, and this is Parkitect. Welcome back to the show, everyone. I appreciate you joining me. Got a great show for you today. We've got this main street we've been working on for a little while. Love my buildings. You probably saw, and if you haven't, you need to go check it out. The Main Street building blueprint template method I made for making this main street pretty quick and pretty easy. But now I want to add some rides up in the upper left corner there. What I'm looking to do is keep these rides in the theme of the main street. You know, the main street is like a 1950s main street kind of thing. And so I don't want a lot of real super modern looking rides up there. So I'm going to start off with a couple of rides I think will fit very well with a 1950s theme. I'm going to use a lot of wood and a lot of browns in the ride. They'll still look great, but they won't look super modern. Maybe they look a little rickety, make them more exciting. What do you think? I think it's going to be great. We're going to show you how to build two rides and then take what you get from this and make your own theme. Hang on tight. The show is coming right at you. Here, and I wanted to build a chair swing. This is one of the add-on chair swings, and we have a base chair swing in the game, but I think this one's going to look a little better for the theme. Now you notice first thing I do is I raise it up a little. That's because I want to kind of build a building around it, and I'm going to use the building set 2 clapboard walls for the outside of this. They just look a little more old-fashioned. It's what I use for my main street buildings. And we're going to just kind of surround this ride and kind of make the paths hidden, you know, the entrance paths hidden inside the building a little bit. It's not going to be a super long queue line, but I did want to make a decent sized queue line. And you notice we just have the stairs go right down immediately from the entrance and the exit. And you notice I use one of those new paths that we have. And the wooden planks, I think that just looks great. And because if you put that wooden plank as the first thing from the exit, everything from the exit and the ride will copy the theme of from your path to the actual ride. It just looks beautiful. I love it. And so first thing I'm going to do is I built it up. I've got the paths down. And now we're going to try putting a little decoration here to kind of cover up. You don't want to be able to see too much through that building. I tried a couple things here. This is the first thing I tried. I've got some awnings that come with the base game, and I did this. And then I try to match up some of the pieces from some of the building sets to make the angles match with that angle that these awnings are at. And it just didn't work. I tried a couple different ones. Building set 1, building set 2, building set 3. I looked through them, tried to get them to match up, and they just didn't quite match up. And I could have kind of faked it a little bit, but it never would have looked right. That's one of the things you have to keep in mind when you're designing your park is don't be afraid to experiment. Try something. See if you can make it work. Sometimes it works, and it's great. Other times, it doesn't work. When I'm making these buildings, I tend to show you exactly my thought process. I don't pre-plan a lot of buildings. And you'll notice here I'm trying to make these fit without it hanging down into the actual doorway. And I'm like, yeah, but you could see that the walls I'm building are higher than the actual awnings and then lower in the middle. So you get that little V in there. Looks like a Chevy. Nothing wrong with that, but not what I was going for. So I looked at it and I thought, let's just try something different. One of the big joys in this is the discovering what you can do, what looks good, and what you like. If you just copy what I do, you might get a nice looking building, but it won't exactly be yours. There's nothing wrong with copying what I do or what someone else does, but then go ahead and take it to the next step and try something for yourself. You'll see here, I decided, well, look, I'm just going to take these walls and put it up to a second story and, box it in, put a roof on it, and that'll look pretty good. So I went to the new roofs from building set number 3. They come out so often, I'm thinking, is there 4? Building set number 3 has some lower angled roofs, which I think will look great here. So I just put those on, and then I'll be able to use in the building set. I'll be able to actually, you can see it takes a minute to get the roofs to actually line up. I'd be able to go ahead and use the interior angles that they had and make that work. But then I looked at it and I ended up with that empty space in the middle because it's an odd number of units wide. So in the end, I just ended up using just a regular pre-built roof, and just one set on one side, one set on the other, just one small pitched roof. It looks okay. Not quite what I was going for, but it's pretty nice. Now I want to go ahead and put a fence around the outside of the ride. I did remove the fence from the ride in the options menu of the ride, so I could put my own fence there. Now, once the new update goes through, you won't have to do that. The new update coming out next month, it'll automatically delete the fence if you put a fence over it. So now I'm going to go and I'm trying to see what's going to look good for the colors on this. And I played around with a couple things. What I end up with is something that is just wood, a light colored, bamboo-y, light pine color for some of the items, and a darker color for some of the other items. Now, you notice I tried white. In the end, I didn't really like the white. You're going to see me change that. So they've got some new pieces that you can use in building set number 3. And that's these windows. You see these windows? They're not actually windows. They're just window surrounds. And they've got a little bit of a design at the top. And I think that really looks neat. I might have to put some of these on some of my other Main Street buildings. And then you just take the window glass from building set number 1 without a frame around it and kind of stick it inside. It was a little bit fiddly. And that's one of the things that when I'm making the buildings, you must keep in mind is that you can't always just hold Alt and have it snap to the grid, because, for example, these walls, because they're three-dimensional, they actually have the 3D model is actually three-dimensional. The planks kind of stick out a little bit, so it kind of overlaps if you just hold Alt down. So I kind of just hold Alt down to get it in the general area and then manually put it down. And because I want it to go inside the window frame, but not inside the wall, I had about 2 pixels to play with. And so it was really fiddly, but don't get frustrated. If you have to, pull out the frame, that decorative frame a little bit, and make it a little easier to do. You notice on this last one, I actually will have to pull out the frame a little bit. You see me delete it and I'll put it back down because I put the frame in too far. I couldn't get the window in between the two. So there you go. There's a nice little decorative frames around everything. I'm going to put a sign in the front. I will make the actual texture for the sign to make it actually say something I want a little later. But I think that looks pretty nice, just as a nice fascia for the building. Now, one of the things I did end up doing is I ended up deciding to do something a little more unique. I like the way the building looks, but it's kind of plain. And it's one of the things you'll notice is that when you're playing with your buildings, you put it down and it looks a little plain. Maybe you want to add some extra pieces. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put beams, 45-degree angle beams, all along the side, and then do this in building set number 3 again. There's this new railing, and you can use this for a railing or even just for a decoration at the top of a building, much like I did with the rooftop cafe. I made it by hand with that using just just regular horizontal pieces of wood and then the little vertical stiles manually. Took forever. Now you can just throw them right down. You notice I'm using the 45-degree angle beams and then just regular, up and down beams to kind of finish it off to give the building a little more of an old-time feel and make it look less plain, I guess is the best way to describe it. I did leave the walls just the regular default creamy white that they come in. I think it looks okay. If you want something a little different, you certainly can. There's nothing wrong with that. One trick I will tell you is you'll notice, because this is right on the water's edge, you notice how it kind of, when I move a piece near the water's edge, it wants to drop down into the water if you're not right on the edge. A trick is go ahead and hold shift, lower, and pull the piece back up to the height you want. In this case, it was 3 units. And then it will just stay at that height, no matter where you are, so it won't keep dropping off if you happen to just touch the curb there where the water starts. Now, as I finish this off, I noticed that the windows at the top just weren't going to work. I liked them, but there was no way to put any beams in here that looked correct, and I didn't want to put big X's in the front over windows. It just wouldn't work. So I deleted the top windows and just went with the cross pattern up here. I think that looks good. Nothing wrong with if you see something isn't working, delete it, change it, make it so it still looks good. Try something new. You never know. So I finished this up and I thought, wow, this is great. I love the look of this, and then I noticed something. Somebody forgot to take into account just how far out the chair swing swings. Oops. Yeah, that was very, very disheartening. I will tell you right now, I was so disappointed. I had this great building, and I'd spent all this time making it. So what I did is I opened up the blueprint, and using the button on the far left, you just select things one button at a time using the left click. Select, and you can just hold it down and drag it across things. And if you drag it on something that you don't want, like that path, just right click and it'll unselect it. Then I made it into a blueprint. You see it's already there. I deleted the whole front of the building that I spent so long making, but it's okay because I just saved it. Just the outside, not the paths. I will have to redo the paths. But all I have to do now is plop it back down one space out and then just fill in the rest with some paths and a couple extra walls to hide everything. And now the swing won't look like it's hitting the wall. Much, much better. Now, here we're going to try to put something else. I thought about doing a merry-go-round, but I'll be honest, it just couldn't fit there. We might have to put it a little farther over or maybe on top. Maybe we'll smooth that mountain out a little bit. And I wanted to do a Ferris wheel, but I was looking and the Ferris wheel just didn't look very impressive next to everything else. So I decided to go with a double Ferris wheel. Again, I'm going to raise it up one so I can build a building around it. And I'll tell you, I like the way this building turned out. I'm not real super thrilled with the blue I used for the path covers that I used on the ride itself. I didn't want to go with another brown. I just didn't want it to be the same thing over and over again. So what I decided is just use path covers. Use little path covers around the edge out of building set number 1. They're the quarter size path covers, and then just built some others in the middle and gave it a little thing. Looks like there's like a no slip pad where you get off of the ride. Not my absolute favorite, but it looks okay. And if I want to change it, it's pretty easy to do. Plopping these down can be a little tedious because one of the issues is that the mouse isn't where the item is. You notice my mouse is offset from where the item is, and that's just the way the person designed the building set. When they put the quarter size path there, it may be because of the way it's a quarter size of a tile, and there may be no way for the game to recognize that it needs to be in the middle of where the mouse is and keep it a quarter size without it just basically not meshing with everything else. So you have to kind of deal with it. There's a little offset there. You just get used to it, and your mouse is down here, and what you're putting down is, quarter inch up. But that's okay. So I start out with this gray, blue for the outside. I end up changing that to a little lighter. I do end up coloring this building like a light blue. I just wanted it to be a little different than the chair swing we have next to it. And then as you'll see here, I just put down some full-size path covers here and leave a little slip in the middle so that I can have that no skid area I talked about. And that's okay. I mean, it's not my favorite, but it is better than just having a plain ride. So we'll revisit those colors some other time. I do change them a little before the end. Now, I do build another building just around this actual double roller coaster, double Ferris wheel, and just a very basic building. I didn't do a lot of details on this one. One of the things that I did do, though, is I did use one of those roofs like I tried to use on the chair swing to kind of just give it an angle in the front where you had just like a front fascia with a roof at an angle, and I thought it looked pretty good. I also am going to go ahead and when I finish this up, I'm going to put not only a sign in the front, but I do use a piece from the utilities section. It's the one with all the pipes and everything. And I've done this before. I make circles. I use 2 circles next to the sign just to give it a little bit more of a, just something different, a little variety in the building. Now right here you'll see I am trying to figure out what I want to do to cover up the paths underneath this. And I tried this, but there's no real good way to do it without blocking the stairs. And this is when I decided, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put like a triangle fascia in the front and cover it up with some of the regular roofs from the building set 2 or 3, and just make it look a little bit more, a little bit more vertical and still look good. Plus it allows me to cover up that opening where you can't see down into the ride and the inside of the ride. Now, if you want to, you can put props and everything inside the building, but for the most part, you're never going to see those, so it's just a lot easier to do it this way. Don't forget, if a piece doesn't line up, hold down Alt-2 or Alt-4, and you might have to press it twice depending on where it defaults to, whether the middle of the tile or the edge of the tile you want it. But here you see I'm putting that roof in, and I put it about halfway up. And this is the building set number 2, the high angle roof. And I just did this because it looks kind of neat. And then just a regular path cover at the top to make the top of the roof. And then I'll just fill in the corners here with some of the regular angled corner pieces from building set number 2. And some of them overlap the bottom. They're not small enough not to overlap, but it doesn't matter because if you match them up right, it just disappears into the other piece, and so you never notice that it's too thick there. You see it goes in, it's really hanging down half a square below, but you don't see it. Looks good. And I really like the way this turned out. Now, I didn't make a sign for this one, but I put a couple windows in the front. There are those circles I talked about, and you'll notice that I did color it blue, and I also put some railroad supports on the side. If you notice on the side of that double Ferris wheel, I've got those big supports that are designed to be on like a wooden roller coaster, but I put them on the side of the Ferris wheel, makes it look like it's more rickety and needs a lot more support. I also, you notice I've recolored the chair swing back here. It's now just all browns, no white. And I think this really gives it a very old-timey look. I really love the way this turned out. Having to do that cutout on the chair swing, it took me back a little bit, but in the end, I think it looks really nice. And you'll notice that these 2 buildings, I'll probably add, or 2 rides, I'll probably add 1 or 2 more out in this section. This is kind of the edge of my main street. I zoned everything, and the main street ends a little bit over here to the right. And I think it looks outstanding. Now, I did put a sign on it, and I made that sign in Photoshop. It took me about 3-4 minutes, and it just matches the theme of everything perfectly. What do you think about that? Do you like the idea of having these old-fashioned rides next to the kind of old-fashioned main street? I love theming things, and I think keeping this theme consistent. Like I said, I'm not thrilled with that blue, the blue-gray. Maybe want to change it, but I just didn't want to do a lot more brown, but maybe it'll look better if I do. We'll take a look at that at some other day. What do you think about the way these look? I love them. I think they look spectacular. Tell me what you think. Leave a comment down below. I do appreciate all the comments and suggestions. If you have something you'd like me to do, leave a comment. Maybe I can do that. I'll take a look at anything that you want. See if it's something that'd work for the show. Also, if you enjoy it, please subscribe. You'll get all my updates. I do about 1 a week, sometimes a little more, sometimes a little less, but I try to get one out about every week. It takes a lot of time. I've got to build the buildings, do the recording, and this probably took me 3 or 4 days of playing around, just a couple hours, but it takes some time, and then I've got to do all the editing and everything. Happy to do it for you. Just, I wish I could do more, but I do have a regular 9-to-5 job. So that's our 2 old-fashioned rides. Tell me what you think. Leave me a comment down below. If you enjoy the show, please subscribe. I appreciate it. And until next time, I hope each and every one of you has a good one.